Morning. This is Pops hanging out, not in a man cave yet. Debbie and I were watching football and old football stuff. I just couldn't seem to get myself away from it. Don't know why. Now, let me see. That's going to cause problem no matter what happens, but at least I have more of a screen now. Diesel laptops by Cojali. Oh, my goodness. How am I going to do this without making a mess? Well, anyway, let's see if I can rearrange this slightly. We'll go over here. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I always have funky lighting, and you're saying, well, what in the world are you doing it that way for? Well, because I'm too cheap. Here we go. You see this big monstrosity? Diesel laptops. Look at that thing. There are connectors in there like you wouldn't believe. That's just for the ag division. Why? Because we can hook up to implements. There's a big dang computer. Don't go thinking it's worth much. This computer, literally, you could buy this computer in its current state without the diesel laptops crap on it or the Cojali for about $400. Yeah, they sit there and tell you how the wonderful computer, it's a hardcore, semi-water resistant computer. Works poorly. You can't count on the mouse pad here. You touch the mouse pad and suddenly the cursor's anywhere between a ½ inch and 6 inches away from where it originally was. And you say, that's your finger. No, it's not. It's the mouse pad. This is the second diesel laptops unit I worked with. The first one was It was the Italian unit. I can't even remember the name of it now. But the Italian unit had a monster connection adapter box. Supposed to work Bluetooth. Guess what? At the time, Bluetooth didn't work with the computer. So where were we then? If I didn't have a Wi-Fi connection, there was no backup for information with that unit back then. This one has some information in it. But even then, that is correct. Let me see if I can get some of this out of here. It's not going to go. But anyway, even with that, some of this, you have to have a connection, a Wi-Fi connection of some sort. It's just a fact of life. They won't go away. They won't go away without it. So what have I got? I've got a computer here that will not connect directly to Wi-Fi. I have to use hotspot. So now you got to go to your phone service and be sure you have enough hotspot, because trust me, if you got 10 gigs, not enough. You'll burn that up fast. And you have to have a good enough connection because the system here is too poor to operate. Now, for those of you using trucks inside your shop, I understand why you like it. I used the old program, the Italian program, and it worked pretty darn good in the shop. But you had to have excellent Wi-Fi to do it. So I went after the boss several times to get the Wi-Fi fixed up. On that system, I managed to get the Bluetooth to work after a while, but it was miserable. Now this one's Cojali, which is a much smaller adapter system. It only comes with 2 plugs. The automotive, I think it's J1962. And there it is. There's the adapter. It's very simple. Both plug into one end or the other. I can't believe that they're still using the old-fashioned I/O plugs, as they call them, or as we used to call them. The only good part about it is a solid unit with those screws. You screw that in there. You don't have to crank them down tight. Just get them snugged. You don't even have to snug them, really. Just get them down so you know there's almost no play. Don't tighten them tight. Never. You just want them snug to almost. This is the new 9-pin with a new protocol. You get that and the J1962 and maybe one other adapter. That's what you get the original for about, what, $7,500? I think they have a cheaper unit yet. But you know what you get in here for software? You don't get Yanmar and a dozen other tractors, it seems, for ag. I don't know why. We've got as much Yanmar around here as we do Kubota, and I've got the Kubota connector and had to pay extra for it. I don't know. So anyway, there we are with that. Why am I? They asked my opinion why I'm not signing up again. Cojali did, not Diesel Laptops. No phone call, no email, nothing, not a thing. So I said, well, okay. Why didn't I? Well, oh, you might get that worthless gray 5-pin connector. That might be there too. What it's good for, I don't know. But anyway, let me turn this around and go this way. I'll put the Diesel Laptops away because by the time I got done re-signing once and getting the extra adapters for the tractors that are in the general area, you know what I found out? Nothing. Show us that thing, Grandpa. Oh, what thing am I supposed to show you? Anyway, Diesel Laptops has caused trouble on here with they have an initial programming page that comes up and you can't shut it off. So you just get the icon to Cojali. Diesel Laptops thing has got all this cool stuff in it. They can put it with icons on the screen, not their funky little doodad that literally sometimes locks up the computer. You know what they said? I don't know. Seriously. In the 2.5, this is to be what, 1, 2. This would be starting the 3rd year, which the only good thing about this mess is supposedly what I have here now in programming I own. Okay? This is everything is mine from here, the programming. Supposedly they don't shut the programming off, but there's no more updates. So if there is something new out there in the world, I won't be able to get it from this point on. Unless I pay another $3,000. You heard me correct, $3,000. So, the Diesel Laptops will still be here, will still be usable, but I'm not carrying around that monster box for stuff that doesn't work. I had a John Deere, what was it, 6415. I had a 4045 John Deere in it, right? Aftercool, what is it? Yeah, turbocharged aftercool. So, what did I do then? Well, when I couldn't get any data out of the Diesel Laptops. None. No running data at all. So I called. Cojali says, don't call us. Call Diesel Laptops. I said, I called Diesel Laptops. They don't know. They said I had to call you. They couldn't tell me a thing about the programming unless they could connect it to the tractor and start fumbling around with it like I did. How do I know? Because I called 3 times, got 4 different people. You got that right. 4 different people. I've called more than that, but that was the unique of it. This I bought 10 years ago. This is an HD reader made by Bosch, and Max sold it with their name on it. HD reader, heavy duty code reader. That's all it does is pull codes. Excuse me. The original Italian box on a John Deere would only pull engine codes, and you had to go into the John Deere engine to get the codes out. It wouldn't get you anything on the machine itself. Tractor, construction, anything. This thing on that 6415 pulled codes out of everything. If it had a controller, it was listed on here. If it had a code and a controller, it was listed here. 10 years old. Bosch. I called for an update, and the Bosch guy laughed out loud. He says, update? Ah, we don't do updates on that. And I said, what do you mean? Ah, it's too old. Besides that, it has everything imaginable in it already. So we don't do anything else? No, that was my main. Thank you. Click. So don't expect a lot of help from Bosch either. Bosch says, we put it all in there. Well, I hooked it up to these newer tractors. It's in there. I even found a seat problem in a newer Deere with a common rail engine. A seat switch problem. It didn't tell me directly, but it gave me enough information that I could infer, by translating the information using the noodle. Oh yeah, got a seat problem. Diesel laptops? Didn't tell me anymore. So I thought, what did I just do? Because I signed up for my second year. Third year, you get a whole brand new computer, remanufactured, reworked, redesigned, screwed up. A whole new kit. Well, they already stuffed me on this one. They said, hey, look at this. I was supposed to have an inverter to plug into 12 volts, and there was about 3 or 4 other adapters that would have added up to over $500 that didn't come with it. And when I called in, the guy says, oh, I guess we just don't sell them now. Yeah. Said, I'm going through the videos here, startup, and I can't do the startup because I don't have half the stuff. Oh, we don't put that in there anymore. It's not what it told me here. So, being frustrated with that crap, you know what? I was looking online, and Bosch had this neat little thing coming up, and I thought, you know, I should go get the Bosch. In the meantime, however, I wanted something at home, something simpler, and I was doing research, trying to figure out what I could do for extracurricular code searches. Nexic. It's owned by Snap-on. It's the Blue Mini. They have a program on the phone. Nexic Blue Link or something like that. Just like it's labeled on here. I plugged this rascal in. It's powered from the unit. 9-pin. It's the updated protocol, the green collar. And every once in a while it comes up a little short. However, if there's running data available in a generic sense, because I'm not running OEM software to get a hold of this, I'm just running a little turd, all hardwired in. Then I plugged the thing in. NFL explosion. Are you going to fix that? Well, that's... But anyway, let me see if I can find it on here. I haven't had to use it much, but when I was on the road working for other companies, I use it. There it is. First link. First link by Nexic, and there it comes up. The curious part about this is there's faults, there's life and trip, there's vehicle specifications if it's available, parameters, then you can email yourself a report off of this thing. And of course at the bottom you can hit scan. There they are, all in reverse. Whoops. Now the parameters down here, that's interesting because it has an entire list of everything that this thing is designed to pull up and read if it's available. Being that it's generic, now the OEM tends to lock a lot of stuff off. 2 50-30 John Deere engines that were power units for generators, I could barely pick up anything. But even then, if you've lost the serial number, the code and all that, the PIN number, this will pull it up. And oftentimes even the controller's numbers. So I was able to get some information here. It would tell me the codes, but because it was construction, it didn't have to meet any SAE specs out there. It wasn't demanded of it by law. But, you know, after a while, it doesn't really matter because you know how many people work on those units? Aftermarket, almost none, so they're not worried about it. And this gave me enough information on a case tractor, a 580N, of the hydraulic temperature sensor. I can't remember if it was hydraulic or torque converter. One or the other. And we knew it was electronic because of the way the machine was built. But it was at an age where case can do two things, have two different setups. Because they had several different models we discovered going through the information I pulled up. And I went online and for, I forgot what it was, 50 bucks, 60 bucks, bought a manual for the tractor. So I was able to get some information on what kind of dash I was looking at in the first place. Well, if you can do that for under $100, I charge the customer. If it's over $100, I definitely charge the customer. But in this case, I charged the customer because it helped us whittle the time down. It would have cost him more than if I didn't buy it. So we pulled up running data that told us exactly what the code meant, even though this didn't pull up the OEM code that was available. Went through the running data. Temperature sensor said minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. We knew which sensor was bad. The manual told us where the sensor was, so we saved another hour, 2 hours worth of searching and technical because we'd pull the plug, We confirmed it with one of us sitting in the cab that the code changed, so we didn't have to fumble around two different things. He knew what it looked like. He was able to go to the dealer, tell them they're all wet. They gave him the wrong unit. I told him be sure, because they'll screw up and give you a unit that's $100 or less. This is going to be $200 or $300. Well, it turned. I said minimum. It can be as high as $5, and if it's not expensive, they got you the wrong one. He said they handed him one. He looked at it, and I don't think this is right. Yeah, that's the one for your tractor. No, I don't think so. $65. He said, take it back. It's the wrong one. What do you mean? And he was able to argue with him. We did that with just this and the original HD code reader told us as much or more than this did. Just by the reader, it's more powerful. It gets in there and really pulls out stuff that a lot of other units don't. That's old. Now, just to show you how old, the 9-pin connector on here is dark gray, so it will not handle the new protocol. And even then, sometimes it'll surprise you what it can do. Because I worked on Komatsu, and they didn't want to give us the Cummins programming for a long time, I made an adapter, marked it, and I can plug in here with the code reader in the 9-pin. And I was able to pull up information that wasn't supposed to be available. That was nice. Komatsu used a little different language and allowed us to connect for the engine. Last but not least, when I get through the diagnostics here, let me close this Nexic down on the phone. If you're working in a truck fleet, I would highly recommend this little Nexic. Oh, that's my bride. You don't need to see that. Actually, it's quite pretty. Married to somebody 64 years old that looks like that. This dude's blessed. Anyway, the Nexic, I'd highly recommend that in the truck fleet. For you guys that are in the shop, if the shop doesn't gripe about it, you buy one of these. Because there's quite a few shops that you're supposed to share a computer. Speaking from experience of Cummins from 1998, 99 till 2001, sharing that computer, every time I got my hands on it was a disaster. The bosses would come out and said, you spent way too much time. And I said, yeah, how do you figure? Do you have another work order or a job title that I can clock onto? Well, no, you have to be on a job. Well, guess what? Somebody left the computer screwed up. What do you mean? It shut down. Ran out of power. They pulled the plug before they shut it off. And then old computers at that time period didn't take it well. So every time it fired up, I had to go through a recycle. There was a, what do they call it? Disk scanner to repair the disk in there because of the shutdown. Yeah. I'd take out the segments that got flashed, and it would reinstall them. Well, you can't do. Well, it's okay. Who's going to run it? Well, do you know how to run it? No, but you got it. You can't just. I said, you want me to do the job or not? And they usually took the shop foreman to sit there and look at him and said, he knows what he's doing. Shut up and leave him alone. You got the computer. Go change his time. Well, I got to put it onto something else. He said, yeah, that's your job, not his. Harry, if you're out there, thanks, man. You mocked us too often, you little jackass. But for the most part, he was very useful. Oh, nuts. But he couldn't work on stuff because they considered him white collar. But in the shop, highly recommended. They've got some better versions now that'll do the medium duty, funny oval-shaped card, 1962 protocol, but whatever. This is the new one, latest and greatest. I forgot what the Bosch name is for it, but this is the Mac. What are they calling? Oh, they're just calling it Mac Heavy Duty. There it is. Comes in a nice bag. Has the old 5-pin and the new 9-pin that the other one doesn't have. New protocol. This one comes with much heavier cables than the others. So this one's similar. Now, the HD reader, what was really sweet about this thing. Remember, I showed you the gray plug, but this was, I like this better. everything was lightweight, small, light. The unit was light. You plug it in, you can put it in your pocket, throw it in a toolbox, take it. Well, you don't want to be careful. You'd put that in your pocket. That's a little plastic plug. However, in 10 years, I haven't broken it. So, and I don't know if you can see it. I've got notches in here and marks. That's how I knew where to hook up that Komatsu adapter. The main reason I did that is there was very few codes, but there were some codes that would only come up separately because of after treatments and such. So anyway, in the diesel laptop side, I've got this thing that all that does is trigger certain models of the case. Some of the case tractors actually have a 9-pin sitting up there on the wall, but if you cross two of them, B and G, boy, girl, one guy used to pull up his Leatherman. You take the Leatherman, cross the two terminals, he'd say boy, girl. And that's all it took. It would activate the diagnostics. In the controllers, basically in the dash controller. What did they call it? DIS or something like that? Dash instrument, whatever. But this one is the one that works the best of all of them. When I first hooked this up, went to my buddy's place, asked if he could let me hook it up. He said, sure, just to get a free code read. Thing fires up, gives you all its information, and then gives you the list. In that list is HD Heavy Duty SAE 1708 1587 J1939. Then there's also HD OBD, which I'm assuming is your medium duty, your automotive stuff. Now, this one, though, it's pretty interesting. It's HD OBD, that's list number 2. That's the one I'm on now. Yes, it's backwards. It's ISO 15765-4, whatever that is. Next one down, Global Automotive OBD2. Then you can review the data because it has the data list. You can print the data, and then there's system setup. So that's the first opening screen. I haven't saved any information on this yet. But on the other side of this, because I can print the data, I don't remember if I've done this yet or not. Turn that up. There is this little printer. Batteries. So I carry some extra. This one is rechargeable, I do believe. I haven't used it in a while. Now, it's thermal printer paper, so that can be a problem. It comes out curled up. It's a little bit, they'll tell you that we've got it fixed. It doesn't. No, it does. This is an HPRT mobile printer, made in China, of course. The one I have is a model MT, Mary Thomas 810, MT810. Manufacturer Zyman Hainen Electronic Technology, whatnot. It was cheap. $30, $35. Start the thing up. The light does all kinds of funky flashing. Every once in a while I have a problem with the thing connecting on Bluetooth. But once it is connected, it just rolls the paper out. It's got a knife bar here to cut the paper off. And then I can hand the customer the information. Now, why is that handy? Well, more than pulling off the code information, if I have the manuals that are in PDF form and the customer needs a page or two, then I've gotten a page or two out of here to be able to hand the customer. And usually that's just fine, A, because it's me working with a guy or two. 99% of my customers are friends and people I know. And the other one is that it's just a couple of pages. It's not like I'm reeling off a book for somebody, which I wouldn't do anyway. You don't have enough paper anywhere near. What was it I told one guy one time? I said, some of the problem that we're having and why I wanted this Cojali information and be able to connect this, the Case International and the New Holland tractors. There are certain vintages of those things that have, what was it, over 11, almost 12,000 pages for a service book. 2 separate service books. One's almost 8,000. And the other one's almost 4,000. Kid you not. Like 3,900, something like that. And the electrical, uh, electronic diagnostics book. Then the other one, the main repair book, is just under 8,000 pages, 7,700, something like that, 78. So, 11 and a half, 12,000 pages. Well, what's that mean? It means that you need to connect into it if there's a code, be able to catch the code, read the code. And that was what I bought the Cojali for, was to be able to diagnose the code and use their information to do the repair. Alas, I found out it doesn't work like that. You have to pay extra money to get the information that you originally paid for. And suddenly they say, we've enhanced it, and they hand you a whole nother. And Diesel laptops did exactly the same thing. Sorry, your prescription is run out. I know subscription, but anyway. So what are you left with? You're left with a piece of junk that costs $10,000. That's correct. The original purchase was just over $7,000. Then I bought the adapter set, which was almost $3,000. It was like $2,000 something. And then I had to sign up again. So between the three incidents, yep, you got to be careful because they can sell them individually, and the kit's almost, buying 3 plugs individually is almost the same price as buying the kit with 6 in it. You know what I recommend? Buy them individually, one at a time. Don't buy the kit. Unless you got a lot of money to lay out and piles of customers to work with. So if you're a side shop, I'm sure a lot of you old guys aren't even getting into this stuff. And you say, yeah, at your age, why did you get into it? You're 64? Well, originally I was 62, and I was looking at a few more years to try and develop the business. Well, it's not working that way. Farmers are afraid to call anybody other than the dealer. John Deere has a thing in their system where even if everything goes right, the dealer will see that somebody connected to the system. They'll also see it was a generic connection. So at least they'll see that much, and they'll start asking questions to the customer, and the customer will get shunned. And that's a true story. They complained about that when I was at Empire Tractor. Well, if you hook that up, then it's a problem. So what do you mean? Next guy that hooks it up, what if they find out a warranty or something? It's a warranty. We're talking about old tractors here. And they had a fit about it working there. Even connecting to a tractor to check the unit to see if it worked. Because some of the Kubota programming, they had one computer in the whole place for Kubota. And we were rolling out of there just assembling to put out in the front line sometimes up to 10 units a day, depending on their size. And there were 2 of us working at it after a while. Well, sales whittled down. They ain't selling that many now, but they are still selling. Kubota's still one of the top selling tractors in the world. Yeah. Farm. Why? They're cheaper. They're reliable. Until they're not. That's just one of those things. They fell into the niche of the 8N Ford and then developed out from there. So now they have tractors up to 300 horsepower. I think they've got them up to 5, working with not Versatile, Bueller Versatile. Well, whoever it is now that's in Canada, whatever they call themselves. And supposedly the M8 series is out, but they build up to an M7, which I think they had 300 horsepower engines there. They had to redesign because originally we were told that there was an engine putting at 180 to 200 horsepower that was only 3.8 liter. Kubota couldn't figure out why it didn't live. Well, Jake, if you happen to be listening to this, I know why it didn't live. But this goes back before your time, before you were a swimmer, if you know what I mean. In the 70s, and I was a pup then, probably mid-teens, Lele Rotera came over. It was a funky little, instead of being a rototiller, it was a, I don't know what you'd call it, reciprocator. And it was designed to break up clods, and you could do it down to 6-8 inches deep. So it'd give you a beautiful seedbed. And then they had a roller that would come behind it. Before they brought that unit to the U.S., they brought it over and did some testings with some of the farmers. And they almost doubled the heft of the structure of the machine. And they said, why? I said, in Europe, we don't have this problem. Over here, when we came for testing, you guys destroyed every single machine we had. And they found out why we were the productive farmers of the world. We were abusive on our machines. Our companies over here knew that, and they built accordingly. Now what are we driving? European machines that you have to buy a machine that's 1.5 the sizes that you would have. A tractor will show up on the lot, 4-wheel drive, with 100 to 120 horsepower, and it'll be no bigger than an 830 2-wheel drive case, or a 930, which basically 830, 1030. 830 is a 4-cylinder 1030. 1030 is 6 cylinders. 730 is a 4-cylinder 930. So we've got these tractors that are, yeah. Well, they're bigger. They're better. They're not necessarily bigger or better. Don't know what to tell you. Lawnmowers, you can go out and buy a lawnmower. That's 20 horsepower on it. 25, 30 horsepower going out there buzzing up and down your lawn. 30, 40 years ago, we had an 8 horsepower lawn tractor doing the same thing at the same speed, unless you were cutting foot-high weeds. They're more efficient. They are. But are they more useful? Entirely more efficient? You had an 8 horse that could do the same job that they put a 20 horse on now, just because people have to feel big, powerful, noisy. And the little 8 horse Briggs buzzed right along, mowed the lawn. 32-inch deck. And now they'll have 32, 38s with 20 horsepower on them. And I just, what? That's my big lawnmower. It's 42 inches. I know a guy that had 12 horse, a 1200 Cadet, with a 52 or 60-inch mower deck under it. He says, keep your lawn mowed. It's more than enough. I've seen 50-inch mower decks on 14 horse and 12 horse. Not a problem. You didn't need 20-some horsepower. But the problem is today it doesn't cost that much more. So now here we are with diagnostics on a 120 horse tractor that might make 100 horse PTO if you're lucky. And you have to go chasing after treatment, common rail engines and sensors. There's a company out there, I can't remember their name now, which is probably just as well I don't. But the company is a Delete company. I think it's called Delete Solutions or something like that. Or DPF Solutions, one of those. And they're talking about putting deletes on a delete system that the customer themselves can take care of, which is, for now, at the moment, legal. If you don't vote correctly in the next election, that will be outlawed as well. And I'm giving you these warnings for a reason, because it's coming. Now, if you're a you're an aftermarket guy, right? You're out there doing repairs. The printer, the main reason I recommend that is, I think this is $30. Yeah. And the plug, this is a USB-C mini, and that charges and handles the communication. If the Bluetooth doesn't work, plug it in direct to the computer, and it worked perfectly with the computer. This computer was antiquated compared to some of this other stuff and wouldn't connect. Another complaint I had from diesel laptops. What they hand you for a computer is probably a 5-year-old piece of junk. I might even pull it out of a scrap pile the way it works sometimes. It's pretty pathetic. And I got warned that this computer does not have enough room for Windows 11. Oh, you've got 10 professional, but it doesn't have room for 11, which means they didn't plan for anything. And there are only 2 or 3 Windows updates on the way through in the last 2 years. So why am I not updating? 2 reasons. One of them is it doesn't work as advertised, either from Cojali and certainly not from diesel laptops and all the promises of tech support they had. Tech support was A, not accessible as it used to be. B, was not consistent. Every time I called, there was a different person on the other end of the line. And when you get to C and D, Cojali had similar problems that you call them for tech support because you can't get anything out of diesel laptops. You bought it from diesel laptops, so Cojali doesn't want to hear it. That's a true story. I was told that twice. So you have trouble with Cojali, which is interesting that they ask my opinion directly. They want to question me. They want to send me extra stuff to put on their Cojali system, but they don't want to help with backup because Diesel Laptop sold it. So as far as I'm concerned, Cojali, you're no better than Diesel Laptops. Diesel Laptops is a joke for the ag systems. They know nothing. Not now, not previous, and certainly I don't trust them into the future. Still will tell you that after reading the Deere with this Bosch unit and pulling up running data, now this is similar to the Nexic. It'll give you a whole list of everything that's available in this unit, what it will call for. But you're at the mercy of what the OEM will put out. And at the same time on the John Deere, it was an impressive list. You say, well, what did you see? You'll have to see for yourself when next time you hook up. I hate to sound like Diesel Laptops help, but I'm not your tech service either. What did this unit cost? I'm trying to think. Okay, I bought the HD code reader for just under $500 10 years ago, roughly. This newer unit that's twice the unit, 2 to 3 times the unit of the original HD reader, okay? It cost, I think, $100 more. It was like $590 something. Let's just say $600. $600. And even, let's put it this way, of my initial purchase of $7,000 plus for the Diesel Laptop. If I have to do a comparison of the two, dollar for value, never buy a Diesel Laptop. If you're the aftermarket guy in ag or you're the farmer out there, I highly recommend either of these Bosch units, especially for your older stuff. If you find one of these old HD reader units and you have an older tractor that doesn't have that green 9-pin plug in your machine, buy that rascal. You buy that cheap off of eBay or something, as long as it's working properly, you will be satisfied. What's the difference on this one too is I think this takes 6 AA batteries. And yeah, 6 AA batteries to operate basically. So every so often, if you're not using it regularly, you got to pull the batteries out. You know they leak. The unit costs money. Just take care of it. I had another unit made by a different company that I bought through Mac for other diagnostic work years ago, a whole different unit, and you didn't need the batteries in it. They were just there to store information and to print it out. So I didn't even have to operate the unit with the battery. I haven't tried that with this yet. So that'd be something that you could try. It cuts the weight in less than half. I mean, the unit's just that simple. So there you go. You got 2 units that are self-powered, so you don't have to have an exact connection, which is great. Plugging into, say, my Komatsu, you don't need the self-power to run, because quite a few of your adapters, like the Diesel Laptops unit, will have several of the plugs and several of the connections, which are multiple plugs to hook up, needs power. Well, these things are self-powered. And the little Nexic Blue Mini, yeah, that is powered off the unit itself. But if you're in the 9-pin, that's irrelevant. The 9-pin hooked up properly has power to it. It just gives you an option if you have a self-powered unit that you don't need. If you're plugging in only to diagnostics, that doesn't have any power to it hardly at all, 5 volts. And it's like an internal, just think of it as an internal radio signal buzzing back and forth on the 2 lines, is what that is. So anyway, that's where you're at there. Now, last but not least, before I leave, I want to leave you with a recommendation too, is that if there is a communication problem, don't immediately go crazy with everything. If it says no communication, well, 2 things. One of them is there might not be power to the controller on the unit. Your batteries may be low. You start the unit up and you're having communication trouble there. Just double check your batteries in the unit, check the unit itself. Because it's self-powered, you're talking about communicating on the 1708 line or the 1939 lines, right? And you're looking, especially the 1939 lines, for that CAN code, and it's across the 2 should add up to 5 volts. This line to ground, the high line to ground, will be up in the excuse me, will run about 2.5 volts, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, sometimes higher. You might get up to 3 volts up here on the high line, which is supposed to be 2.5 volts and up. The other one is 2.5 volts and down. And between the two, you should be able to come up 4.5 to 5 volts. That's your signal series. Now the other one is the key off. Well, if you're going into your two diagnostic connectors on your diagnostic port, you know which ones they are, then what you need is 60 to 60. Well, you're usually anywhere between 59 and 61 ohms is going to be good. I've seen them work up as high as 62 ohms, 63 ohms. That's getting a little too high, but they quite often work there. And then if you're down below 58 ohms, then it's not going to work at all either. So there's a fairly wide range, but you want to see that 59 to 61 ohms. What do you mean? They're 120 volt resistors. Exactly. There's two communication lines up and down, and at the end of each is a resistor. And they found out by putting that resistor in, as messages went out on either line, the resistors tend to dissipate the message so that it didn't bounce back as an echo. And I think they were talking about an echo between the lines. So you can have connections on this line, connections on that line. They can communicate with each other, but they're trying to keep it to a minimum because they need two lines to communicate for each one. And whatever goes out on one line, high and low on the signal, they don't want it to be above or below what they're looking for. So that's how they're kind of doing the communication, is in a sense pulse messages. And they need it when the message goes onto the line. They need it once it's broadcast. They need it to stall. It's hit all the controllers. They need the message to disappear until it's sent back out again, because each individual controller is supposed to pick up the message and store it there if it's applicable to it, because it also has a tracer that tells it which controller it's sending it to, or if it's sending it to all of them. So your communication there is important. 120 ohms on each end, which again, your 120 is going to vary a little bit, but they're usually pretty close, because you get the two together. If they both vary by much more than 1%, it's going to be a problem. That's why quite often those resistors are expensive, but they're worth it. And the systems work well until recently. Then you'll find out on some machines that you're having trouble with communications because there's several individual CAN networks. You can have a spider network now, engine controller. Well, the engine controller may be taking care of several controllers on the engine. Transmission controller will be working with maybe more than one or two other controllers or other type of CAN network applied sensors on it, or controllers even, or actuators. May have a chip in there running a CAN network from there to here, CAN network from that one here, depending on which one. You'll find that quite often with your DEF systems. It'll be a 4-wire, and you're wondering, how does it get all that information on 4 wires? Well, because there's communication wires and power wires. That's why there's 4. Power to power the chip, which is internal, and the other 2 are the CAN network communication lines, especially on your DEF multi-sensors that are telling you quality, temperature, and what's the other one? There's another one. Can't remember. But anyway, level. Duh. But there's quite a few of them that have separated level from it, and others that put them all together. So you got level, temperature, and quality all in that sensor. Well, how do they do that on 4 wires? Well, they don't have separate sensors from there. They have 3 sensors that send information to its own little computer chip controller, and then it goes out on the CAN network. Oh, yeah. So sometimes you walk up to a sensor and you see 4 wires. It's not the same as your old oxygen sensor that had a heater and a signal. Oh, yeah. So you might have multiple CAN networks that you have to go chasing. You say, but there's no resistor in there. No, that's where it's problematic, because the sensor unit itself has its terminating, and the other terminating is in the controller itself. That's when it gets fun. And just remember, when you're doing any ohms testing, all power is off. In fact, make sure you have the battery disconnect and or the battery disconnected at the negative terminal. Those things are critical. All right, 45 minutes. I spent too much time in here. I spent more time than I originally planned, but that's all information I think that'll help some of you guys that are patient enough to go through this. Just think as this is what we used to have in the 60s and early 70s as sunrise semester. Saturday mornings, there used to be college level courses available on some of the local radio or TV channels here. They were interesting because some of the instructors, I looked at it and said, that's what I'm looking forward to in college? I don't think so. Some arrogant jackass type professors. Oh, intelligence doesn't mean they know how to teach. So hopefully here I gave you a little bit of fun, a little bit of fast-paced information to some extent, and then gave you more than you ever needed to know. You folks have a good day, and the Lord bless, and may He bless those people and put His hands on those, and may He change our nation for what they're doing to the people that have gone through that hurricane. Most of us didn't know that hurricane was still a Category 1 when it was almost back out to the Atlantic. Pure devastation. We've been through that here, but we're well above flood level up here. But I say well above, I mean well above by 50 feet. Yeah, we've been blacked out from any place in civilization for up to a week. We had to wait for the water to recede, but we didn't have half the devastation a lot of the people there did. But it did affect some trees, but not much. We don't have a lot of trees left over here to be bothered. The ones that would will smash my pole barn out back, so we'll have to take care of some of that later on. But at this point, I just figured I'd throw that prayer out there for you folks down there in the Carolinas and Georgia and other states, Tennessee. Wow. You folks be good.